Throughout history, the narrative of Native American tribes has often been presented in ways that obscure the diversity and complexities of their experiences. Among these narratives are the stories of Black Native American tribes, groups that not only faced the challenges of colonial expansion and systemic oppression, but also bore the unique weight of dual marginalization. These tribes, once vibrant and integral to the cultural mosaic of North America, have seen their histories diminished, distorted, or erased altogether. By delving into their stories, we uncover not only the resilience of these communities, but also the profound impact of their erasure on our collective understanding of history. One of the central dynamics shaping the history of Black Native American tribes was the confluence of African and indigenous peoples. From the earliest days of European colonization, Africans were forcibly brought to the Americas as slaves, and they often found themselves in close proximity to Native American tribes. Over time, these groups formed alliances, intermarried, and created distinct communities that blended African and indigenous cultures. However, the historical circumstances that gave rise to these tribes also laid the groundwork for their eventual disappearance. The colonial period was marked by a brutal struggle for control over land and resources, and Native American tribes were frequently caught in the crossfire. Black Native American tribes, in particular, faced an intensified version of this struggle due to their dual heritage. They were often targeted not only for their land but also for their perceived racial identity, which subjected them to the harsh realities of both enslavement and displacement. European settlers and later the U.S. government pursued policies that systematically undermined these communities, stripping them of their land, culture, and autonomy. One such tribe, the Black Seminoles, emerged in the southeastern United States during the 18th century. The Seminoles were originally part of the Creek Confederacy, but they became a distinct group as they migrated into Florida. As runaway slaves from the southern colonies sought refuge in Native American territories, many found sanctuary among the Seminoles. Over time, these escaped Africans and their descendants became known as Black Seminoles. They developed a unique culture that blended African and Seminole traditions, creating a community that thrived despite constant threats from slave catchers and government forces. The Black Seminoles' resistance to oppression is a testament to their resilience. During the Seminole Wars, they fought alongside their native allies against U.S. forces that sought to remove them from their lands. Their resistance was not merely a fight for territory, but also a fight for freedom and self-determination. Despite their efforts, the Black Seminoles were ultimately forced to relocate westward during the Trail of Tears, a journey that decimated their population and fragmented their community. Today, the legacy of the Black Seminoles lives on in scattered descendants and historical records, but the tribe as it once existed has largely vanished. Another tribe that faced a similar fate was the Yamasee, an indigenous group that had significant interactions with African populations. The Yamasee originally inhabited the coastal regions of what are now South Carolina and Georgia. They were known for their trade relationships with both Europeans and other Native American tribes. As the Atlantic slave trade intensified, African slaves brought to the region began to form connections with the Yamasee. Intermarriage and cultural exchange led to the emergence of a distinct Yamasee African identity. The Yamasee War of 1715 marked a turning point for the tribe. Frustrated by European exploitation and encroachment on their lands, the Yamasee joined forces with other tribes to resist colonial expansion. The war was devastating, and its aftermath saw the dispersal of the Yamasee people. Many were killed, enslaved, or absorbed into other tribes. The African Yamasee population, which had begun to take shape, was particularly vulnerable. Without a cohesive tribal structure, this group struggled to maintain its identity, and over time, it faded from historical records. The Natchez people provide another poignant example of a Black Native American tribe that vanished. The Natchez were originally a powerful tribe in the lower Mississippi Valley, known for their complex social structure and ceremonial practices. During the colonial period, they came into contact with enslaved Africans brought to the region by French colonists. The Natchez and Africans formed alliances, particularly in the context of resisting French domination. These alliances were not merely strategic. They also involved significant cultural exchange and intermarriage. The Natchez's resistance to French rule culminated in a series of conflicts that ultimately led to their downfall. In the early 18th century, the French launched a campaign to destroy the Natchez as a political entity. The tribe was decimated, and survivors were scattered. Those who had formed alliances with Africans faced an even grimmer fate, as they were often enslaved or forcibly relocated. The unique Natchez African culture that had begun to emerge was effectively obliterated, leaving behind only fragments in historical accounts. The stories of these tribes highlight the broader challenges faced by Black Native American communities throughout history. Their dual heritage placed them at the intersection of two systems of oppression: the colonization and displacement of Native Americans and the enslavement and racial discrimination faced by Africans. This intersectionality made them particularly vulnerable to erasure, both physically and culturally. One of the primary mechanisms of this erasure was the imposition of racial classifications by European colonizers and later the U.S. government. Black Native Americans were often categorized solely as black, effectively denying their indigenous heritage. This process was institutionalized through policies such as the Dawes Act, which required Native Americans to be listed on tribal rolls to receive land allotments. Black Native Americans were frequently excluded from these rolls, leaving them landless and disconnected from their tribal identities. The erasure of Black Native American tribes was further compounded by the narrative frameworks used to document history. Early historians and ethnographers often ignored or marginalized the experiences of mixed heritage communities, focusing instead on pure Native American or African American histories. This selective storytelling reinforced the idea that Black Native American tribes were anomalies rather than integral parts of the historical landscape. Despite these challenges, the legacy of Black Native American tribes endures in the cultural practices, oral histories, and genealogies of their descendants. Organizations and scholars have worked to uncover and preserve these stories, shedding light on a neglected aspect of American history. Efforts to reclaim this heritage are not merely acts of historical recovery, but also acts of resistance against the forces of erasure that sought to silence these communities. The disappearance of Black Native American tribes also raises important questions about the nature of identity and belonging. For many descendants, the loss of tribal affiliation has created a sense of disconnection from their roots. Yet, it has also inspired efforts to reconnect with and revive their heritage. These efforts often involve navigating complex issues of race, culture, and community, as descendants seek to honor both their African and indigenous ancestors. Examining the histories of Black Native American tribes, we are reminded of the interconnectedness of human experiences. These tribes were born out of the intersections of African and indigenous cultures, and their stories reflect the ways in which people adapt, resist, and persevere in the face of adversity. Their erasure from mainstream narratives is a loss not only for their descendants, but for all who seek to understand the full scope of American history. The histories of the Black Seminoles, the Yamasee, and the Natchez are but a few examples of the broader phenomenon of Black Native American tribes that have vanished. Each tribe had its own unique experiences and contributions, yet they shared common struggles and triumphs. By bringing their stories to light, we honor their memory and reaffirm the importance of preserving the diverse threads that make up our collective past. Ultimately, the story of Black Native American tribes is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Despite the forces that sought to erase them, their legacies endure in the stories we tell, the cultures we celebrate, and the identities we embrace. As we continue to uncover and share their histories, we take a step toward a more inclusive and accurate understanding of our shared heritage.